Thanks for watching the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainey Romero. Today we're chatting all about the Britney Griner case. Welcome back. I'm here with attorneys Amy Lawrence and Sharday Crawford. How are you ladies doing?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
So, this is a pretty big thing in the news right now with Britney Griner and kind of what's happening with her. So she was recently sentenced to 9 years in Russia, in prison there. Let's backtrack a little bit just in case people don't know what's going on. Why is she over in Russia in jail?
So she's a WNBA player, and not that this is an excuse, but WNBA players are notoriously underpaid. And so she had a second job in her off season playing in Russia. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, make sure. And I get all upset like about these cases. And so when she's over there, she's leaving, and they found a weed pen
As she was leaving Russia to come to the
it wasn't
US?
even full, right? It just had like the remnants of marijuana in it.
It wasn't a lot. I know that.
It was like a very, very like tiny amount. And she was arrested and held, and she had a trial, a very quick trial, and was sentenced to 9 years.
Yes, just happened. And so when she was sentenced to 9 years, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert with Russian law and how they go about things, but was that a high sentence for them, or?
Well, it says, based on my research, it says that the average amount of time that someone would get is about 5 years.
Okay.
But there are other individuals from America who have been sentenced for far greater amounts of marijuana who received only a fine.
Wow.
2 months time that they time served sentence and a fine, whereas she's getting this 9 year sentence plus like a $16,400 fine.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, I mean, the fact that it's garnering this outrage shows that it's not a typical sentence.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when the sentencing, was announced, I had heard, even through friends and family, that it was a strategic move. Oh, they're going to try and trade her. Oh, they're going to try and do this and that since she got 9 years. And now we find out that they actually are trying to do some sort of trade with her. Amy, what were you going to say?
Well, I get all upset about a lot of this stuff, so I apologize. But so what we see in this case is like we forget, like, it's not in a vacuum, right? So in this case, we've got this, this geopolitical issue. We've got the war in Ukraine. The United States has backed Ukraine. We're giving them tanks and bombers and guns and all this stuff, and it's pissed off Putin. And so if you don't believe that this is, Russia's using this as leverage against the United States, then you're living in a fantasy world, right? So that's the game they're playing, and so far they're winning. And the issue becomes is that the person they would like to trade her for is like the Prince of Death, right?
Literally, that's his nickname, right?
He was like the #1 wanted person in the CIA across the United States. I mean, across the world, by the United States. And so I just don't think that we should be trading Britney for
the Prince of Death.
Super dangerous person.
I mean,
yeah.
And I think also, and Sharday and I have talked about this before, like, everyone's like, this is crazy, this is crazy. This is happening in America.
Yes.
And they're getting far more sentence time. I mean, we know people who are doing, we've seen cases where people are doing far more time for very little marijuana, in the federal, especially the federal system, but also in the state system. And so I think if we're going to cry outrage that Russia's doing this, we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves and our own laws, because it's bullshit no matter where it is. If it's in America or if it's in Russia, people shouldn't be doing prison time for small amounts of marijuana when it's legal in so many states.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And so we decided we need to take a long, hard look, and we need to release the people in prison for marijuana in the United States just as hard as we need to fight for Britney in Russia.
Right. Right. And, just to kind of give a couple names to this, they're trying to trade Britney and another person that is from the U.S. being held. I think his name, I'm trying to find his name, but I think it's Paul Whelan. And do either of you know anything about who Paul is?
He's an American that's charged with espionage.
Okay. So, somebody else that was over there. And just as a side note, I can't imagine how scary that would be, being in another country. I mean, does she speak Russian?
I don't know, but one of the things that I saw that bothered me is that they say she's charged with smuggling. And when I think of being alleged to have been a drug smuggler, I think of more than just a vape pen in my suitcase.
We think
right?
mule, right?
Okay.
We're thinking bricks and cocaine.
Okay.
And that was
like
kilos. I don't even really know what that means, but it's a
lot of grams
right.
of heroin
yeah.
hidden in my body cavities.
Oh yeah.
But it makes me also think about our trafficking laws here,
yeah.
right? When you are charged with trafficking, which essentially you would also think of as smuggling, right? That's how I would think of it. But then I remember one of the first drug cases I was going to try. It was a heroin trafficking case. And I go to look at the evidence. And when I get there, I'm like, well, where's the bricks?
yeah.
Where's the cases stacked up?
Yeah.
And the police laugh at me because they're like, well, first of all, it's heroin. And so the trafficking weight for heroin
you wait for the aha moment,
4 grams.
Right?
Yeah. And it's not. It's just this teeny tiny amount. And so it just really makes me look at our drug laws.
So I remember when I took my first drug case, they told me this guy had like 2.5 grams of marijuana, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what does that look like? What is 2.5 grams? Okay, let me just tell you this. It was like half of a Dorito. Mm-hmm. I went and got like a little scale at the grocery store when I was buying groceries because, okay, I'm going to sound like the biggest like nerd ever. She's a nerd too, so she can appreciate this. Right. We've never done drugs before. So like when I saw, like in my head, we're thinking like bricks of cocaine, right?
Yes.
And then I go and I'm like, I get my little scale and I put it to grams because in my head I just can't do math. I'm an English major. And I'm like, it was a paper clip was like 3 times the amount of marijuana that this guy had. And you're like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. You're wanting to put people in prison for 25 years? Mm-hmm. For something that is less than a Dorito? I mean, that's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. And then when you say it's smuggling, but there's no intent behind it. Yeah. It's just like with trafficking. There's no intent behind our trafficking laws. It's just about possession. And so in this case, here she is saying, yes, I possessed it. And I did place it in my bag, but I had no criminal intent in it.
Right.
And it's just scary that you can get 9 years for something as
very
simple as
scary.
that.
Because like when you think of like a small amount of, and we all have I think all of our lives have been touched with the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
We all know people who do heroin, who've gotten hooked on oxy from like a surgery and then this just becomes what they have to do to like not be sick anymore.
Right.
And so they have no intent of going and like selling this or taking it across state lines to like package up and send it from Mexico. Like this is in your head, that's what you're thinking. No, it's all for their personal use. And when you take that intent out of it, that it's just the weight of it or lack of weight of it, I think would probably even be a better description. It just all seems like bullshit.
Yeah.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The love